Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the space station New Geneva, watching the stars. His hands were sweaty inside his gloves. Today was the day that would change everything for humanity. The first alien ship was coming to Earth. "Captain, they're here," Lieutenant Lisa Parker said from behind him. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the nervousness underneath. Jake turned around and saw the massive alien vessel approaching through the viewport. It was 3 times bigger than their space station. The ship looked like a giant metal beetle with glowing blue lights running along its sides. He had never seen anything so beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "All crew to stations, Jake," announced over the communication system. "This is it, people. Remember your training. We represent all of humanity today." Dr. Ben Carter joined them at the viewport. He was carrying a thick folder full of translation programs and first contact protocols. "The computers are ready, Captain. We can talk to them in real time now." Jake nodded. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. Ever since the radio signals from space had been decoded, humanity had been getting ready for this day. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council, and they wanted to meet the newest intelligent species in the galaxy. The alien ship moved closer until it was directly in front of the station. A bright beam of light shot out from the ship and created a tunnel of energy between the two vessels. Jake had read about this in the briefings. It was how aliens traveled between ships in space. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Ryan Brooks. "They're requesting permission to board." "Granted," Jake said. He straightened his uniform and walked toward the main docking bay. His team followed behind him. The docking bay doors opened with a loud hiss. The first alien stepped through the energy tunnel. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The creature was huge, at least 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in thick, dark plates that looked like armor. 4 arms extended from its torso, each ending in clawed hands. Its head was triangular with glowing red eyes. "I am Commander Zixtar of the Vraxian Empire," the creature said. Its voice was deep and rumbling like distant thunder. The translation device worked perfectly. "I speak for the Galactic Council," Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth and humanity. Welcome to our space." More aliens followed Commander Zixtar through the tunnel. The second group looked completely different. They were tall and thin with blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer like water. They moved with flowing, graceful motions. "These are the Neptari," Commander Zixtar explained, pointing to the blue beings. "They control the ocean worlds of the Andromeda sector." The third group was the strangest of all. They looked like walking crystals, their bodies made of transparent material that sparkled with inner light. They moved together in perfect formation, never breaking their synchronized steps. "Zelthans," Commander Zixtar continued, "masters of the crystal planets in the outer rim." Jake introduced his own team. "This is Lieutenant Lisa Parker, our xenobiologist, Dr. Ben Carter, our communications expert, and Communications Officer Ryan Brooks." Commander Zixtar looked down at the humans with what Jake thought might be amusement. "You are very small," he said, "and you look fragile. Your skin is thin, your bodies are soft." "We may be different from you," Jake replied carefully, "but we're intelligent. We've built cities, traveled to space, and created art and science." One of the Neptari stepped forward. Its voice sounded like water flowing over rocks. "Intelligence is common in the galaxy. Every species that reaches the stars has intelligence. But intelligence alone is not enough for council membership." A Zelthan spoke next. All the crystal beings spoke at the same time, their voices creating a harmonious chord. "The galaxy is dangerous. Only strong species survive. Only warriors can protect themselves and others." Commander Zixtar nodded in agreement. "The Galactic Council has existed for 10,000 years. We have seen many species rise and fall. The ones that survive are those that can fight, the ones that can win wars." Jake felt his heart sinking. He had hoped that humanity's achievements in science and culture would be enough. But it seemed like the aliens only cared about military strength. "What do you mean by warrior?" Dr. Carter asked. Commander Zixtar's eyes glowed brighter. A warrior is one who can defeat enemies, one who can conquer territory, one who can protect what is theirs through strength and violence. The Vraxian commander gestured to himself. My people have conquered 17 star systems. We have defeated every enemy we have faced. We are the strongest warriors in the galaxy, the Neptari representative spoke again. Our fleets control the space lanes. Our technology is superior to most other species. We win through advanced weapons and tactics. The Zelthans added their harmonic voice. We fight as one mind, one purpose. Our coordination is perfect. No enemy can match our unity. Jake looked at his team. They were all thinking the same thing. How could humanity compete with these powerful alien warriors? Humans had only recently figured out how to travel between planets. They had no space fleets, no advanced weapons, no experience in galactic warfare. I understand your concerns, Jake said slowly, but humanity has its own strengths. We're creative, adaptable, and we work well together. Commander Zixtar made a sound that might have been laughter. Working together is not the same as fighting. Together, can you defeat an enemy fleet? Can you conquer a planet? Can you win a war? We've had wars, Jake admitted. But we've also learned from them. We've found ways to solve problems without fighting. Solving problems without fighting is weakness, Commander Zixtar said firmly. The galaxy respects only strength. If you cannot prove you are warriors, you cannot join the council. Lieutenant Parker stepped forward. What kind of proof do you need? The three alien species looked at each other. Commander Zixtar spoke for all of them. There is a standard test. All species must pass it to join the council. It measures warrior ability, combat skills, and strategic thinking. Dr. Carter frowned. What happens if we fail? Then humanity remains isolated, the Neptari said. No trade, no protection, no knowledge sharing. You will be alone in the galaxy. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The future of humanity depended on his decision. If they refused the test, Earth would be cut off from the galactic community forever. But if they took the test and failed, the result would be the same. We accept, Jake said. We'll take your test. Commander Zixtar nodded approvingly. Good. The test will take place on Kepler 442b, a neutral world. The arbiters will supervise the trials. Who are the arbiters? Ryan Brooks asked. Ancient beings who oversee all council business, the Zelthan chorus replied. They are older than any of our species. They judge fairly and without bias. Commander. Zixtar turned toward the energy tunnel. Prepare your best warriors. You will need soldiers, tacticians, and leaders. The test begins in 7 days. As the aliens prepared to leave, Jake called out, Commander, what exactly will we be tested on? The Vraxian commander looked back with his glowing red eyes. Everything that makes a true warrior. Strength, courage, strategy, and the will to win. If humanity truly belongs in the galaxy, you will prove it. The aliens disappeared through the energy tunnel, leaving the humans alone in the docking bay. Jake looked at his team. They all had the same worried expression. Well, Dr. Carter said quietly, now we know what we're up against. Jake nodded. Get me a line to Earth Command. We need to assemble our best people for this test. As he walked back toward the command center, Jake wondered if humanity really had what it took to be considered warriors by galactic standards. Soon they would find out. 7 days later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the surface of Kepler 442b, looking at the strangest landscape he had ever seen. The planet had purple grass and 2 orange suns in the sky. Strange rock formations jutted up from the ground like frozen waves. The air was breathable, but it tasted metallic. This place gives me the creeps, Lieutenant Lisa Parker said, adjusting her equipment pack. She was part of the 12-person team that Earth had sent for the trials. Dr. Ben Carter was studying his scanner readings. The gravity is 20%, higher than Earth normal. That's going to make everything harder. Stephanie Collins, the team's military leader, was checking her squad's gear. Stay alert, everyone. We don't know what these tests are going to throw at us. The human team had spent the past week preparing. They had brought their best soldiers, engineers, medics, and scientists. Jake had hoped they would be ready for anything, but now he wasn't so sure. In the distance, they could see the other species setting up their camps. The Vraxians had brought massive weapons and heavy armor. Their camp looked like a military fortress. The Neptari had advanced technology that floated in the air around them. The Zelthans moved in perfect formation, their crystal bodies reflecting the orange sunlight. "Look at that!" Communications specialist Ryan Brooks pointed to a group of tall, thin figures approaching from the north. "Those must be the Arbiters." The Arbiters were unlike any of the other species. They stood nearly 10 feet tall but were incredibly thin, like living shadows. Their skin was pale gray and seemed to shimmer. Most striking were their eyes. Each Arbiter had 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows across their face, all constantly moving and focusing on different things. The lead Arbiter spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. "I am First Arbiter Telvin. We have overseen these trials for thousands of years. Today we will test your worthiness to join the Galactic Council." Commander Zixtar stepped forward from the Vraxian camp. "We are ready to prove our superior warrior skills." The Neptari representative floated closer. "Our technology will demonstrate our combat effectiveness." The Zelthans moved as one unit. "We will show perfect coordination and tactical precision." First Arbiter Telvin's 6 eyes focused on Jake. "And what will humanity demonstrate?" Jake felt all eyes on him. "We'll show that we can adapt, work together, and find solutions to problems." Commander Zixtar made that rumbling sound again. "Problems are solved through strength, not cooperation." First Arbiter Telvin raised a long, thin hand. "The first trial will begin now. Follow me." They walked across the purple grass to a massive structure that looked like a mountain with windows. As they got closer, Jake realized it was artificial, built from some kind of dark metal. "This is the collapse scenario," First Arbiter Telvin explained. "An underground facility has been damaged by seismic activity. There are civilians trapped inside who need to be rescued. You have 2 hours to save as many as possible." The Arbiter gestured to a large screen that appeared in the air. It showed a cross-section of the underground facility. There were hundreds of small dots representing trapped people scattered throughout the complex. Many sections were blocked by debris. "The facility is unstable," the Arbiter continued. "More collapses are possible. Each team will enter from a different access point. The species that rescues the most civilians wins this trial." Jake studied the screen carefully. The facility was like a maze with multiple levels and numerous obstacles. Some areas were flooded, others were on fire, and many passages were blocked. "This is a job for superior strength," Commander Zixtar declared. "We will smash through the obstacles and carry out the survivors." The Neptari representative nodded. "Our technology can create force fields to prevent further collapse," the Zelthan spoke in harmony. "Perfect coordination will allow us to clear the facility systematically." Jake looked at his team. They were all thinking the same thing. How could they compete with the aliens' superior strength and technology? "What do you think, Sergeant?" Jake asked Amy Collins. Amy was studying the screen intently. "The facility is too complex for brute force. And those other teams are going to cause more problems if they're not careful." "What do you mean?" Dr. Carter asked. "Look at the structure," Amy pointed to the screen. "It's already damaged. If you start smashing through walls and creating force fields in the wrong places, you might bring down the whole thing." Lieutenant Parker nodded. "She's right. This isn't about strength or technology. It's about understanding the problem." Jake was getting an idea. What if we approach this differently? What if we don't just try to get people out, but help them help themselves? The trial began. Each team entered the facility from their designated access point. Jake could hear the sounds of the other teams working through the communication system. The Vraxians were using their strength to punch through walls. The Neptari were deploying their advanced equipment. The Zelthans were moving through the facility in perfect formation. The human team took a different approach. Instead of rushing in, They spent the first 10 minutes talking to the trapped civilians over the facility's communication system. "This is Captain Morrison," Jake spoke into his radio. "We're here to help. Can anyone tell us about the facility layout?" A voice crackled back. "Thank goodness, I'm Engineer Martinez. I work here. The main support beams are damaged. If you put too much stress on sections 4 and 7, the whole place could come down." Sergeant Collins smiled. "Perfect. Can you tell us where the emergency equipment is stored?" "Level 3, Section 2, Martinez replied, "but it's blocked by debris." "That's okay," said Field Engineer Carlos Rodriguez. "We'll find another way." The human team split into smaller groups. Instead of trying to clear every passage themselves, they began teaching the trapped civilians how to help. They showed them how to use debris as support beams, how to create safe breathing spaces, and how to help injured people. "Listen carefully," Amy Collins spoke to a group of civilians over the radio. "You can help us help you. Find anything that can be used as a lever. Work together to move smaller pieces of debris." Meanwhile, the other teams were running into problems. The Vraxians' brute force approach was causing additional cave-ins. The Neptari's force fields were working, but they were focused on the wrong areas. The Zelthans were moving efficiently, but they were only helping people in their immediate area. Dr. Carter made a crucial discovery. "Captain, I'm picking up patterns in the collapse. It's not random. There are safe corridors that connect different sections. Can you map them?" Jake asked. "Already on it," Carter replied. "But we need people inside to confirm the routes." Lieutenant Parker had an idea. "What if we train some of the civilians to be our scouts? They know the facility better than we do." The human approach was working. By teaching the trapped people to help themselves and others, they were creating a network of rescuers inside the facility. The civilians were working together, sharing information, and helping each other escape. "This is amazing," Engineer Martinez called over the radio. "We've got teams forming on every level. People are helping each other." Jake watched the rescue numbers on his display. The humans were pulling ahead, not because they were stronger or had better technology, but because they had turned the trapped civilians into part of the rescue team. Commander Zixtar's voice boomed over the communication system. "This is not proper warrior behavior." "You're not conquering the problem. We're solving it," Jake replied. "Isn't that what matters?" As the 2-hour time limit approached, the final numbers were announced. The Vraxians had rescued 47 people but caused 3 additional collapses. The Neptari had saved 52 people using their advanced technology. The Zelthans had rescued 61 people through perfect coordination. The humans had rescued 94 people. More importantly, they had organized the remaining trapped civilians into self-sufficient groups that could continue helping each other even after the trial ended. First Arbiter Telvin's 6 eyes focused on the human team. "Interesting methodology. You did not simply rescue the civilians. You taught them to rescue themselves." Commander Zixtar stepped forward angrily. "This is not warrior behavior." "They did not demonstrate combat skills. They demonstrated results." The Arbiter replied calmly. "The goal was to save civilians. They saved the most." Jake felt a surge of pride in his team. They had found a way to win not through superior strength or technology, but through cooperation and creative thinking, but he could see that the other species were not happy with the results. This was only the first trial. The real test was still to come. The next morning, Captain Jake Morrison woke up to the sound of alarm bells. The orange suns were just rising over the purple landscape of Kepler 442b, but something was wrong. The air smelled of smoke and fear. "Captain, you need to see this." Lieutenant Lisa Parker called from outside his tent. Her voice was tight with worry. Jake quickly dressed and stepped outside. In the distance, he could see smoke rising from what looked like a small city. The Arbiters had built it overnight using their advanced technology. It was complete with buildings, streets, and even what appeared to be people moving around. First Arbiter Telvin approached the assembled teams. His 6 eyes moved constantly, watching all 4 species at once. "The second trial begins now. A plague has struck the colony of New Haven. The population is sick and dying. 3 factions within the colony are fighting over the remaining resources. Holographic display appeared in the air, showing the colony layout. Jake could see 3 distinct areas, each controlled by a different group. Red zones marked areas of conflict between the factions. The plague is spreading, the Arbiter continued. Food and medicine are running low. Each faction blames the others for the crisis. They are preparing for war. Commander Zixtar stepped forward confidently. This is a clear military situation. We will establish order through superior force. The Neptari representative floated closer to the display. Our medical technology can cure the plague. Once the disease is eliminated, the conflict will end. The Zelfins moved in perfect formation. As they spoke, we will create defensive positions and protect the innocent while the factions destroy each other. First Arbiter Telvin's eyes focused on Jake. And what is humanity's approach? Jake studied the display carefully. Unlike the rescue scenario, this wasn't just about saving people. This was about solving multiple problems at once: disease, resource shortage, and conflict between groups. We need to understand why they're fighting, Jake said slowly. The plague might be the trigger, but there are deeper problems here. Commander Zixtar made his rumbling laugh sound. Problems are solved through strength, not understanding. We'll see, Jake replied quietly. The trial began immediately. Each team was transported to a different entry point around the colony. Jake could hear the sounds of conflict in the distance. Shouting, sirens, and what sounded like weapons fire. The Vraxians moved in like a conquering army. Jake watched through his scanner as they established checkpoints and began forcing the factions to stop fighting. Their approach was direct and effective in stopping the immediate violence. The Neptari deployed their advanced medical equipment and began treating plague victims. Their technology was impressive, and Jake could see the infection numbers dropping in areas where they worked. The Zelfins created fortified positions and began evacuating civilians to safety. Their coordination was perfect, and they moved people efficiently away from the conflict zones, but Jake noticed something the others had missed. The fighting kept starting again as soon as the alien teams moved to new areas. The Vraxians could stop battles, but new ones broke out behind them. The Neptari could cure the plague, but people kept getting reinfected. The Zelfins could protect civilians, but they couldn't address the root causes of the conflict. This isn't working, Sergeant Amy Collins observed. We're treating symptoms, not the disease. The disease you mean is the plague? Dr. Ben Carter asked. No, Amy replied. The disease is why they're fighting in the first place. Jake divided his team into small groups with a different mission than the other species. Instead of trying to control the situation, they would try to understand it. Communications specialist Ryan Brooks established contact with leaders from all 3 factions. This is Ryan Brooks from the human team. We're here to help. Can you tell us what's really happening? The first faction leader, a woman named Elena, spoke angrily. The others are hoarding medicine while our children die. They started this plague to weaken us. The second faction leader, a man named Marcus, was equally angry. They're lying. We've been sharing resources fairly. They attacked our medical center first. The third faction leader, David, had a different story. Both groups are wrong. The plague started because the water purification system broke down. We've been trying to fix it, but they keep stealing our repair equipment. Jake realized that none of the factions had the complete picture. They were all reacting to crisis without understanding the full situation. Dr. Carter, Jake called on his radio. Can you check the water purification system? Already on it, Captain, Carter replied. This is interesting. The system didn't break down. It's been deliberately sabotaged. By who? Unknown, but the sabotage happened before the plague started. Someone wanted to create this crisis. Meanwhile, field engineer Carlos Rodriguez was working with local technicians from all 3 factions. Instead of bringing in human technology to fix the water system, he was teaching the locals how to repair it themselves. The problem is here, Carlos explained to a mixed group of technicians. See how this valve has been damaged? It's not wear and tear. Someone cut these pipes on purpose. The local technicians looked at each other with growing understanding. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, spoke up. If someone sabotaged our water system, then none of our factions are to blame. That's right, Carlos said. You've all been fighting each other while the real enemy stayed hidden. Negotiator Susan Walsh was having breakthrough conversations with the faction leaders. By bringing them together in a neutral space, she was helping them see the bigger picture. Let me understand this correctly, Susan said to the three leaders. Elena, your medical supplies started disappearing 2 weeks ago. Marcus, your repair equipment went missing around the same time. David, your food stores were raided just before the plague started. The leaders nodded, each remembering their losses. What if the same group took all of these things? Susan continued. What if someone wanted you to fight each other? Elena's eyes widened. The off-world traders. They've been coming around more often lately, offering to buy our resources cheap because of the crisis. Marcus stood up angrily. They're profiting from our misery. They created this situation to make money. Jake felt the pieces clicking together. This wasn't just a plague and resource crisis. It was a manufactured conflict designed to benefit outside traders who wanted to buy the colony's valuable resources at low prices. Dr. Helen Martinez, the team's medical officer, made another crucial discovery. Captain, the plague isn't natural either. It's been genetically modified to spread quickly but not kill too many people. Someone wanted to create panic, not genocide. The traders, Jake said grimly. They created the plague and sabotaged the infrastructure to force the colony into selling their resources. The human team shared their discoveries with the three factions. Instead of fighting each other, the colonists began working together to address the real threats. Elena's faction had medical knowledge. Marcus's group had engineering skills, and David's people had agricultural expertise. Working together, they could solve all their problems. This is remarkable, First Arbiter Telvin observed as he watched the situation unfold. The humans have not only stopped the conflict but united the factions against the true enemy. Commander Zixtar was frustrated. They did not defeat anyone in combat, they just talked. They defeated the traitors without firing a shot, the Arbiter replied. The traitors have fled rather than face a united colony. Is that not victory? Jake watched as the colonists worked together to rebuild their water system, share medical supplies, and distribute food fairly. The plague was contained not through superior technology, but through cooperation and shared knowledge. The human team had won the second trial by turning enemies into allies and revealing the real threat that had been hiding in the shadows, but Jake could see that. Commander Zixtar was getting more frustrated with each trial. The Vraxian commander clearly believed that humans were not demonstrating proper warrior behavior. The final trial was still to come, and Jake had a feeling it would be the most challenging yet. Captain Jake Morrison woke up on the third day to complete silence. No alarm bells, no sounds of conflict, nothing. The quiet was more unsettling than any noise had been. He stepped outside his tent and found First Arbiter Telvin waiting for him. Today is the final trial, the Arbiter said, his 6 eyes focusing on Jake with unusual intensity. This test will determine once and for all whether humanity belongs in the Galactic Council. Jake looked around and saw that the other teams were also gathering. Commander Zixtar looked confident, his red eyes glowing brighter than usual. The Neptari floated in formation, their technology humming with energy. The Zelfins moved in perfect synchronization, ready for whatever challenge awaited them. What's the trial? Jake asked. First Arbiter Telvin gestured to 4 separate areas that had appeared overnight. Each area contained an exact replica of the species' homeworld, complete with buildings, terrain, and what appeared to be military forces. Each species will face an enemy that is identical to themselves, the Arbiter explained. Same weapons, same tactics, same numbers, same abilities. You must defeat an enemy that fights exactly as you do. Jake felt his stomach drop. This was the one scenario he had hoped to avoid. How could they defeat an enemy that used the same cooperative tactics that made humans successful? Commander Zixstar roared with excitement. Finally, a proper warrior trial. We will show you what true strength looks like. The Vraxian commander led his team toward their testing area. Jake could see through his scanner that they faced an identical Vraxian force on a battlefield that looked like their home planet. It was a warrior's dream, pure combat between equals. The Neptari moved toward their aquatic testing environment. Their opponents were perfect copies with the same advanced technology and tactical knowledge. The Zelfins marched to their crystal battlefield, where they would face duplicates with identical coordination and strategic thinking. Jake looked at his human testing area. It appeared to be a replica of Earth with cities, forests, and what looked like another human military force. But something felt wrong about the whole setup. This doesn't make sense, Lieutenant Lisa Parker said quietly. If we fight ourselves, it'll be a stalemate forever. Dr. Ben Carter was studying his scanner readings. The energy signatures are perfect matches. These aren't just copies, they're exact duplicates. Sergeant Amy Collins checked her weapons. Then we'll have to find a way to outthink ourselves, the trial began. Jake could hear the sounds of battle from the other testing areas. The Vraxians were engaged in massive combat with their duplicates, the sound of clashing armor and roaring voices echoing across the landscape. The Neptari were locked in a technological battle, energy weapons firing constantly. The Zelfins were fighting in perfect formation against equally perfect enemies, but in the human testing area, something strange happened. As Jake's team approached their duplicates, the duplicate humans raised their weapons and prepared to fight. But they didn't attack immediately. "Wait," called out the duplicate of Jake Morrison. "Why are we fighting?" Jake stopped in surprise. Because it's the trial? But what's the point?" asked the duplicate of Dr. Carter. "We're exactly the same. We'll just hurt each other for no reason." Private Kevin Murphy, the youngest member of Jake's team, stepped forward. He was barely 20 years old and had been quiet during most of the trials. "Maybe that's the point," he said suddenly. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Kevin looked between the original team and their duplicates. "What if the test isn't about fighting ourselves? What if it's about understanding why we would fight?" The duplicate of Kevin nodded. "We're fighting because we were told this is a trial?" But nobody explained what we're supposed to accomplish. Jake felt a sudden realization. "You're right. We've been assuming we need to defeat you, but what if there's another way?" Communications specialist Ryan Brooks activated his radio. "Duplicate team, this is Ryan. Can you tell us what you've been told about this situation?" The duplicate Ryan replied immediately. "We were told that original humans are invaders who must be stopped. We're supposed to defend our Earth." "That's not true," Ryan responded. "We're not invaders. We're here for a trial to join the Galactic Council." There was a long pause. Then the duplicate of Sergeant Collins spoke up. "If you're not invaders, then why are we being told to fight you?" Lieutenant Parker had an idea. "What if someone wants us to fight? What if the real test is figuring out that fighting ourselves is pointless?" Jake looked around at the other testing areas. The alien species were locked in endless combat with their duplicates. The Vraxians were fighting with brutal intensity, but neither side was winning. The Neptari's advanced technology was perfectly matched by their opponents. The Zelfins' coordination was canceled out by equally perfect enemy coordination. "They're all stuck," Jake realized. "They can't win because they're fighting perfect copies of themselves." Dr. Carter was checking his readings. "Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. The duplicate teams aren't getting the same information we are. They're being fed different data about the situation." "Someone is manipulating both sides," Jake said, understanding flooding through him. "The real enemy isn't ourselves, it's whoever is trying to make us fight." The duplicate Jake stepped forward. "If that's true, then we need to work together to find out who's behind this." Instead of fighting, both human teams began sharing information. They compared their orders, their briefings, and their understanding of the trial. The differences were clear. Someone had been lying to both sides. Field engineer Carlos Rodriguez worked with his duplicate to trace the source of the false information. "The signals are coming from outside the testing area," he reported. "Someone is broadcasting fake orders to both teams." Dr. Helen Martinez and her duplicate compared medical data. "We've been given different biological readings, too." Each side was told the other was carrying a dangerous disease. The two human teams worked together to locate the source of the deception. They found a hidden facility beneath the testing ground, where automated systems were sending false information to all the duplicate teams. "This is the real test," Jake realized. "Not whether we can defeat ourselves, but whether we can recognize when we're being manipulated into unnecessary conflict." The human teams shut down the deception systems together. Immediately, they could hear changes in the other testing areas. The alien teams were beginning to realize that they had been fighting based on false information, but the alien duplicates continued fighting. Their programming was too strong, their warrior instincts too ingrained. They couldn't break free from the pattern of combat even when they realized it was pointless. Only the human teams were able to overcome their conditioning and work together. First Arbiter Telvin appeared suddenly, his 6 eyes focused intently on the human teams. "Remarkable. You are the first species to solve the true test." "The true test?" Jake asked. "The test was never about defeating duplicates of yourselves," the Arbiter explained. "It was about recognizing when conflict is unnecessary and finding ways to avoid it." Commander Zixstar emerged from his testing area, battered and exhausted. His duplicate team was equally damaged. "This is not a proper warrior trial," he complained. "There was no winner." "There was a winner," First Arbiter Telvin replied, looking at the human teams. "Humanity won by refusing to fight a pointless battle." Jake looked at his team and their duplicates, who were now working together to help the other species understand what had happened. They had won not by being the strongest fighters, but by being smart enough to question why they were fighting in the first place. The final trial was complete, but Jake sensed that the real revelations were still to come. First Arbiter Telvin stood in the center of the gathering, his 6 eyes moving constantly between the 4 species. The testing was over, but Captain Jake Morrison could sense that something important was about to happen. The air felt heavy with anticipation. "The trials are complete," the Arbiter announced. "But before we reveal the results, you must understand the true purpose of these tests." Commander Zixstar stepped forward, his armor still damaged from fighting his duplicate. "We demand to know why the final trial was not a proper combat test. Real warriors settle disputes through strength." The Neptari representative floated closer, its blue-green skin shimmering. "Our technology was perfectly matched. There was no way to demonstrate superiority." The Zelfins moved in formation as they spoke in harmony. "Perfect coordination against perfect coordination creates only deadlock. This proves nothing about warrior ability." First Arbiter Telvin's 6 eyes focused on each species in turn. "You are all correct. And that is exactly the point we have been trying to make for 10,000 years. Jake felt confused. "I don't understand. What point?" The Arbiter gestured to the landscape around them. Suddenly, the purple grass and strange rock formations changed. The testing areas disappeared. In their place stood monuments and memorials stretching as far as the eye could see. "This planet is not a testing ground," the Arbiter said quietly. "It is a graveyard. Every marker you see represents a warrior species that destroyed itself through endless conflict." The monuments were incredible in number. Thousands upon thousands of markers covered the landscape. Jake realized that each one represented an entire civilization that had been lost. "The Galactic Council was not created to find the strongest warriors," the Arbiter continued. "It was created to find a species that could break the cycle of destruction that has plagued the galaxy for millions of years." Commander Zixstar's red eyes dimmed. "What cycle?" "The warrior cycle," the Arbiter explained. "Strong species conquer weak ones. They grow powerful through conflict, but eventually they meet equally strong enemies. Then they fight until both sides destroy each other." A second Arbiter appeared, then a third. Jake realized there were dozens of them, all ancient beyond measure. They moved between the monuments like guardians of the dead. "We arbiters are the last survivors of the first great warrior race," the lead arbiter continued. "We conquered half the galaxy before we learned the truth. Strength that is used only to defeat others eventually defeats itself." "Lieutenant Lisa," Parker spoke up. "So you've been looking for a different kind of warrior?" "Yes," the arbiter replied. "A warrior that builds instead of destroys. A warrior that creates allies instead of enemies. A warrior that solves problems instead of causing them." Dr. Ben Carter was studying his scanner. "Captain, these monuments, some of them are less than 100 years old. This is still happening." "The cycle continues," another arbiter said sadly. "Species after species follows the same path. They become strong through conflict, then destroy themselves through the same conflict that made them powerful." Commander Zixtar looked around at the monuments with growing horror. "Are you saying that all warrior species are doomed?" "Not all," the first arbiter replied, his 6 eyes focusing on the human team. "We have finally found one that is different." Jake felt the weight of the moment. "You mean humanity?" "In 10,000 years of testing, no species has ever passed all 3 trials the way humanity did," the arbiter explained. "Most fail the first trial because they try to solve problems through force alone. Some pass the first but fail the second because they cannot work with former enemies. None have ever passed the 3rd trial." The Neptari representative sounded confused. "Why is the 3rd trial so difficult?" "Because it requires a species to recognize when fighting is pointless," the arbiter replied. "True warriors know that the greatest victory is avoiding unnecessary conflict." Sergeant Amy Collins stepped forward. "So the tests weren't really about combat skills at all?" "They were about wisdom," the arbiter said. "The wisdom to know when to fight and when not to fight. The wisdom to turn enemies into allies. The wisdom to solve root causes instead of treating symptoms." Commander Zixtar was struggling to understand. "But strength is important. How can you protect anything without the ability to fight?" Jake had an idea. "You can fight, but you fight differently. Instead of fighting to destroy your enemies, you fight to protect your friends." "Exactly," the arbiter said, his eyes brightening. "Humanity understands that true strength comes from making others stronger, not from making them weaker." The Zelfins spoke in their harmonic voices. "How does making others stronger make you stronger?" Private Kevin Murphy, who had been quiet during most of the conversation, spoke up. "Because when you help someone, they want to help you back. When you teach someone, they can teach others. When you make friends, you're not alone anymore." The young human's simple explanation seemed to resonate with everyone. Even Commander Zixtar nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "The galaxy has been trapped in the warrior cycle for too long," the arbiter continued. "Species fight each other over resources, territory, and pride. But fighting only creates more fighting. It never truly solves anything." Dr. Helen Martinez asked, "What happens now? What does this mean for humanity?" "Humanity will not simply join the Galactic Council," the arbiter announced. "You will lead it. You will become the first peacekeeper prime species, responsible for helping other races break free from the cycle of destruction." Commander Zixtar stepped forward. "And what of the rest of us? Are we failures?" The arbiter's expression became gentle. "You are not failures. You are students. Humanity will teach you a new way to be warriors." Jake looked at the Vraxian commander. Despite their differences, he could see that Zixtar was intelligent and honorable. "Would you be willing to learn?" Commander Zixtar was quiet for a long moment. "My people have fought for thousands of years. It is all we know. Fighting doesn't have to stop," Jake explained. "But you can fight for different reasons. Instead of fighting to conquer others, you can fight to protect them." Amy Collins nodded. "Some of the best warriors I know are the ones who fight to keep others safe, not to hurt them." The idea seemed to spark something in Commander Zixtar's mind. Fight to protect instead of fight to conquer? "Exactly," Jake said. Your strength could be used to help weak species instead of conquering them. The Neptari representative joined the conversation. Our technology could be shared instead of used as a weapon. The Zelthans added their voices. Our coordination could help organize rescue efforts instead of military campaigns. First Arbiter Telvin's 6 eyes showed what Jake thought might be hope. This is what we have waited for. Not just one species breaking the cycle, but helping others break it too. Over the following days, plans began to form. Humanity would establish the first Galactic Peacekeeping Academy on Earth. Representatives from all species would come to learn new ways of thinking about strength and conflict. Commander Zixstar would become the first alien instructor, teaching combat skills that were focused on protection rather than conquest. The Neptari would share their technology for healing and building rather than destroying. The Zelthans would teach coordination for rescue and construction projects. As they prepared to leave Kepler 442b, Jake stood once more among the monuments to fallen civilizations. But now, instead of feeling sadness, he felt hope. The cycle could be broken. Warriors could build instead of destroy. Ready to go home, Captain? Lieutenant Parker asked. Jake looked at his team, then at their new alien allies. Yes, but we're not going back to the same Earth we left. We're going back to build something better. The journey back to Earth would mark the beginning of a new age in the galaxy where warriors fought not to create enemies but to create friends.